Welcome to the Popular Pig Podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Rhoda, and joining me today is PJ Corns and Barrett Eller, and we're going to talk about relevancy in the pork industry. We're going to hit a lot of different areas on this one. Should be pretty fun.
Should be fun, gentlemen.
And you wore your gray shirt today.
Yep, not Mr. Pink.
Yes, we should start out. Fashion faux pas, I believe the last time I was in here. Got a lot of comments on my shirt.
Yeah, we're sending out like color coordination, do's and don't wears and things like that. So,
well, it wasn't your fault. Apparently, you showed up pretty purple, but then we looked and we edited it a little more purple than pink.
Let me get. So one of the comments was the purple pig boy.
Okay.
Another comment was that somebody stared at my shirt long enough and closed their eyes and they saw the scream mask. So anyway, I've gone bland.
A little bit more. Yeah, there you go.
But you went blue.
And that just came from my family and people I work with, by the way. So, yeah.
Who knows what everybody else is saying?
Let the producer give you a public apology. Sorry about that. Color grade was a little cooler. I apologize.
Make me look good, man.
I'm going to make you look good on this one. Extra good on this one.
Thanks, man.
All right, so let's start off just with a brief introduction of yourself, what you do today, and we'll go with you, PJ.
PJ Corns, Technical Director with JBS USA. Been with JBS now about 5 years. Work in the technical end of things, people development,
What's your 80%? What are you spending 80% of your time doing?
80% of my time is building a technical team within our system here. Working on, last time I was here, we talked a lot about SOPs, love talking that. I'm a boring person. So SOPs, what else? Just building the processes up in our system, that, help us make more profit, help us make more pigs. So, yeah, there we go.
What about you, Barrett?
Director of Customer Success and Growth for the SwineTech team. And at the end of the month, it'll be 4 years.
Very good.
Before that, spent most of my time in operations and then HR. And so, my 80% of the time right now is just helping grow and lead a team, and each one of them just going out, best way to onboard our customers, service our customers afterwards, making sure they're successful, not just with the platform, but just overall with their team and their production system. So
you're 4 years in.
Yep.
The next thing that was 50. That's halfway, right? That's halfway.
Yeah, that was halfway. Yep. You almost cut me loose.
I
Yep.
did not.
What was the next thing?
That was right. That was like exactly halfway through.
That's halfway now.
Yeah, right.
Like a hand model or something?
No, shh. Hey,
thigh model.
That I have another story for you for that one, but that's after the podcast
For another time.
Old wrestlers should have stopped wrestling a long time ago, and that's when you think like the chiropractor fixes everything, and then a nice person with an MRI machine tells you that your spinal cord's pinched off.
Oh yeah. I remember that.
Yeah,
You're
it was
in
a
bad
downer.
shape. Yeah.
Yeah, but good thing is I couldn't shave my face for 10 weeks. So I grow this, and my wife says, yeah, I did that later. My wife says I'm cute again. So ultimately, it actually
worked in your favor.
It turned out pretty well. So
there you go. Well, all right. So today, going to kick things off by just focusing on the history of production and maybe start early days of your career and through your consulting career. What did it used to look like to be relevant in the swine industry? Maybe what was the bare minimum that you needed to do to be relevant as a producer?
We always talk, you always talk to me like I'm an old guy, about the old days.
Just for this table. Just for this table.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was a long time
wow,
ago.
relevancy. So, back in the day, and as you think about that, is it any different today? You want to
more pigs, same problems?
Well, yeah, of course, but it's about how much did I learn today? And then maybe a couple weeks later in that role, was I able to teach somebody something? And then, how fast was I growing? Because that was always, that competitive mindset that we have to this day, is just that. What did I teach? What did I learn? And then what kind of knowledge share am I passing along? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think as I think about it today, that relevancy would be What did I learn? What did I teach? And how am I moving that system forward? You know, and I think that in of
For you as a
itself-
person.
yeah, as a leader in a company, you know. But when we think about it, how much time do we spend doing that?
Yeah.
You know, how much did I learn today? Don't we lose that over time? Man,
You
we're
get
going down
busy.
a rabbit hole quick here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get busy, so you lose that.
You stop protecting your time and you're solving problems, but you're not necessarily teaching and learning. You're putting out fires. But that fills that hits that dopamine of awesome, we solved the problem, cool, I'm productive, I made something of myself and I was successful today, and then you stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're just starting out in your most formative years, and maybe you're just more keen to that or more sensitive to that of what did I learn today? Today,
Yeah.
do I do that? Probably not as much as I should. And that's my own
But
fault.
when you started out, I think an advantage that your generation had was
Back in the day, generation.
was you got the repetition with the scaling of the industry to
There's no
do
doubt.
startups and everything else that came with growing the industry. That repetition and going from a smaller farm and flow to the larger flows, you kind of saw it all. And I think a lot of people are coming into the industry today and they get a very small fraction of what it means to be a well-rounded professional in the swine industry. And you guys became well-rounded naturally. You had to, otherwise you couldn't stay around. You needed people who could do that. Is that fair?
I think that's a fair statement, and I'm well around.
Maybe a little bit. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and you know, like we talked last time, a lot of that was by mistake, you know? Mm-hmm. And I mean, Dr. Coble and I were just talking about this, you know? And I got to be careful with what I say here because we want to build a system or we want to build a culture. I struggle with that word a little bit, but we want to build a culture of failure.
Yeah.
What I mean by
Struggle
that
with culture or
is-
failure?
Well, you know, there's mistakes, and mistakes are, I knew this was wrong, but I did it anyway. And we see that a lot, you know, in the natural variation that we build into this biological thing
Yep.
we call pig production. But there's also, you know, how do we stretch ourselves? You know, how do we make things happen? And we got to be okay with that.
Yep.
I think conservatively in the business we're in, maybe that's not so much what we want to do, but that's how we grow, right?
Yep.
You know, is by really stretching the boundaries of what we're thinking out there. Now, do we want anybody out there, the term we use is cowboying?
Yeah.
You know, we don't want that, but you know, what do we got to do to get better? And it goes back to that point again, and I'm just thinking about it, you know, we lose that time of, you know, how much time do we learn? And, and how much time do we pass that along?
So on your term cowboying,
Yep.
what percentage of your career, because of just the industry learning through such significant change in the 90s and early 2000s, what percentage of your career do you think was cowboying? Because you had to have some of it, right? There was probably a period of time there where you kind of had to cowboy.
Yeah. I can probably say it now because I'm so old or whatever the hell you're talking about. But I think that came more in the people management realm of things, you know, because it just didn't know,
Yeah.
you know, go back, you know, to managing a farm within like, I don't know, 10 months of just seeing my first pig. There was a lot of cowboying around managing people, you know, and that thought of, you know, I'm just coming out of college right into a farm and now I got to manage people, you know, I got to manage, you know, mothers who got to get their kids to daycare.
Yeah.
I got to manage, you know,
Which you don't empathize with because you haven't lived that yet.
I have no idea,
Yeah.
you know, so somehow I made it through, you know, probably, you know, to the detriment of some, you know, some folks on the farm, but you had to learn. You know, so that was probably more the breeding and farrowing and stuff like that. I think that came with time. You know, did we do some stuff? Yeah. but we learned from that. We
All
won't do
those
that
pig
now.
movements.
All those pig movements, which is a big topic right now. But I think it was more around the people management stuff and I don't know if cowboying is the right term. What is there got to be a better? You're just naive to it, or you just don't know.
So I would also say this. One question I want to make sure I get across is, as a production leader, so you have things that you were mentioning before, like SOPs. We discussed like where you want to go down the lean management hole or anything else like that. As, hey, here's how we want to execute, and here's the talent and the training that will help us execute this process. And then you have this area of learning and developing on what is the best process. So how do you, as a leader, or even from advisory talking to another producer, how do you balance that between a little bit of creativity and exploration to find something that is better? And then when do we buckle down and execute and run between the tackles type of a thing?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you gotta,
because in the middle,
you never want to. I guess the best way to kind of answer that straightforward is, let's put that creativity into the execution. How do you execute this? Do you got one person doing it? Do you got multiple people? But be really creative around that.
Yep.
And not the science.
And not the science, not the processes. Let's the playbook is good. We say that all the time. The playbook works.
Yep.
It's how we, run the plays that we get to. So, I mean, and that comes up because you don't want to take away people's creativity because, sometimes people think that. But let's put that into the execution. Can you build an action plan around what your opportunities are? And let's get into that. And I think that gives people the freedom, that they want to be able to express that creativity while at the same time, very importantly, making some more pigs or developing people.
So I mean, in your experience in the various environments you've been in, and I think yours even within Martin Marietta and New Fashion is probably more relevant to this. Maybe at SwineTech it's relevant at this point. But you guys naturally had an environment where you were allowed to fail because you were learning, you were discovering. And now we're in an environment where we have our processes, we have our expectations, and we have people that have been there and done that and can protect current leaders and staff. Are we, for lack of a better word, are we sheltering our people so that way when you and other people are gone and these problems arise, how do you naturally let them fail in trying to solve a problem you might be able to jump in and solve, but yet allow them to build that experience on how this is how I problem solve, this is how I address these issues? I mean, it's a problem in parenting, it's a problem in business. How do you create that freedom to fail when you know you can jump in and protect them?
So,
do you let them fail?
So I
in
usually
a safe place?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I usually go through, like I even asked one of our team members asked me a question the other day. It's like, well, what do you think about this? Or like, well, let's just start asking questions. What's the ceiling of your solution? What's the floor? What are the other options? And then start to just question them, kind of go back. And then ultimately, if they're in the right position, which most of the time they are, they're going to answer and be like, so does it feel like a good decision? And then I'm pretty confident over my career that they'll be like, yes, like they'll make that judgment call. They'll be like, no, actually this other option looked really good. Or like, man, that floor is a lot deeper than I thought it was. Let's look at something a little bit less risky. So ultimately just questioning them back rather than guiding them or letting them free fall, just kind of like teaching them how to think, like creative think of like, just think through different options.
Yeah. And I think that you got to look at yourself also in that. And I think if people see us as leaders, I don't want to say failing, but when something's not right, we own up to it and we move on.
Yep.
Then that creates that safe space of saying, hey, I'm not going to get hammered because I did this.
Don't try to hide your mistakes. Almost project them. Like, I messed up. This is what I learned from it.
Right.
We're better off.
I think that's leadership 101, right? Yeah. Own up to your mistakes and grow from it. And I think that's ultimately what we want to do. We want to see those that we make. Let's use that as a teaching moment. And also, look for that, not that you're, out mining to find people doing it wrong, but look for those instances and then let's learn from them. The old,
You're not trying to get people in trouble. You're trying to find areas to teach.
the old, hey, how would we approach this differently? That means I have to help.
Right. Yeah. So actually, if you read the book Principles by Ray Dalio, who's a big hedge fund creator and owner, like in advisor of like the '08 crisis, all the things, right? He actually had a book of like radical transparency, and he would actually like let his team know, hey, this is what I lost. And you have his other leaders, this is what I lost, this is what it cost us. And it's like, it's scary to think of, could you live in an organization where the CEO today, now as far as like confidentiality, things like that, and exposure and doubt.
We're talking publicly traded at this point.
Yeah. Like, I mean, that's pretty raw to be able to do something, or even like a private producer that's got 300 employees, like, hey, like this is what I did. You think about how gutsy that really was for a hedge fund creator. Like that's nuts.
Sure.
Like, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, you lose your support if that gets in the wrong hands. Like that.
Yeah.
There's a healthy level of hide what you're bad at, show what you're good at in a hedge fund.
Yeah. Yep.
Very interesting. So when you think about relevancy, I think a lot of people point towards the pig. Would you say that relevancy today and into the future is going to be more tied to the person? Because, I mean, you've got the pig, the genetic potential.
Sure.
I mean, there's sows out there having 40 pigs. I mean, there's a lot of pigs that come out of this sow. We also have the people component, an entire different type of workforce, completely educated in a very different way and probably more educated than what we've probably had historically, very diverse. But then you also have technology and AI. Where do we think the greatest level of relevancy is going to come from? Optimizing technology, our people, or the pig? How do you think through the combination of those?
Yeah,
It's a big question.
It's a big question. And I think, the political way, and I think this is right. You got to marry the two together, like we talked about last time.
Yeah.
I don't know of a scenario where you still don't have us being a part of that. We're still using AI technology to help us along the way, to help us refine some of those things, maybe some of those, again, we go back to the data thing, how much of a, now that I'm probably 2 or 3 years into this AI thing and looking at data, I keep thinking about the time I wasted doing that, because sometimes I'll find myself still looking for that piece of paper, still looking at that Excel spreadsheet. And I'm like, man, what am I doing here? When the answer's already out there. Yeah. But then I got to go do it, and I think that's the other part.
And not forgetting how the sausage is made.
That's right.
Because some people can get straight to just getting direct access and forget how to walk that back to problem solve.
Right. It was something that resonated with me recently was our CEO, Wesley Batista, was talking about AI technology. And he said, let's just not do it to be cool. Let's just not do it because somebody else is talking about it. And his analogy was, if you have a toolbox and you have a tool in there, don't take it out and then go in your house to look for something to fix. Looking for something, use AI as strategically, purposely to do something to make us better. And I think, I think it was just luck or just naivety to the whole thing with this data deal, but it's really allowed us to kind of sharpen ourselves on, remember, I think when we first rolled this out, it wasn't good. But as it has evolved, as we've evolved to know how to use it, it's gotten a whole hell of a lot better, so that's where we are today.
Well, there's so many different use cases too. I think AI in our industry, the fact that myself and a few others are kind of the spokespeople for it, and that shows how maybe far behind we are because there's a lot I do not know about AI. But you have individuals that know very, very little, and you have individuals that can do quite a lot with it. And getting individuals who know it at a high level to not think of it as the Swiss Army knife that's going to solve all my problems, and maybe some of those younger individuals that are very confident in it to not just run to, like you're saying, let's go find the AI and figure out what we're going to fix with it. There's a balance there, and that's a very wise. It seems like a very wise comment that he made, because that's I've never heard it put that way before.
Yeah, and I think You have to be strategic about it in our business, or in any business. That sounds stupid. In any business, and then just evolve over time. And again, it goes back to our last conversation we had. I think that next generation needs to embrace that and find out how it's going to work and implement that. So,
yeah, we're having some fun. We're actually rolling out a big AI thing here in a couple weeks, and it's very focused on the frontline staff. How do we take all the information we already have on a day-to-day basis and make it more accessible to anyone of any skill set, of any language, just so that way we can solve a problem, get that information. But on the complete flip side, you've got genetics and pharmaceutical companies focusing on, what are predictive and prescriptive type AI based on the data? What could we go do? What should you go do? And we're starting to see that as these technology companies are becoming more capable and more integrated, you're seeing how that conduit flows between the two to say, this is where maybe SwineTech connects with staff differently than a pharmaceutical company or a genetics company. So the type of problem you're trying to solve, the data might flow to a different interface depending on the person who's trying to answer a question. Am I trying to solve a problem a year from now with AI by looking into the future and getting a predictive insight? Or am I standing next to a sow trying to remember what the protocols are when we just broke with PED yesterday?
Yep. Yeah.
They're completely different, but that
I'm
conduit
more
needs
on
to be
that
there.
one, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Like, what do I need to do now? Right.
Yeah. But the exciting part of what's going on in some of this technology is there's a lot more that you're seeing now. I don't have to talk to you guys about this, but slat up. Slat up. And that is some really cool stuff coming out.
And so much of it used to be top down, right? When you look at a lot of these technology
Everything.
companies, it was always, how do we cater to the decision maker so we can get the deal? And then maybe someday we'll make it to the staff. And we're starting to see that the more used technologies have really focused on the front line, whether that's biosecurity, feed management, people management. If you can get to that front line, that data is so much clearer.
Yeah.
And you're able to articulate that information so much better and then also drive change. Yep. It's just cool. We got a whole new level of insight and placement with technology that I think can help our people, which is cool.
Right. And that technology's connected quicker to the decision makers on the farm.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the really neat stuff. And you talk about creativity. I think that's where it's going to come, is now we've got that information on the farm that people can use. And, somebody like me or somebody else not in the farm doesn't even know about, where it used to be it had to go through me. Mm-hmm. And then 3 weeks later, I'd get it to the farm, and then that whole lag stuff.
I think it's that manager and the coaching, and I'd love it if you could speak to your analogy of the coach who drew up the game plan. I think he was in the locker room, and the team comes in. It's like, are we winning or are we losing?
We talking movies?
I was gonna say I don't know about that one.
All right, so I'm gonna do my best, and maybe you'll pick it up.
Yeah, maybe I'll pick it up. Okay.
Data historically has been very much like a football coach. Going and looking at film, saying, this is how we're. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so give you an example. So like, can you manage the game as it's played, right? Mm-hmm. So I think this is the one you're going to.
Yeah.
Is like if the offensive or defensive coordinator said, "Hey, here's our game plan for the first half," right? Go out and do it, and they went in the locker room afterwards, and the team just came in. So that entire time, the coordinator didn't know if the right plays were called, how they were executed, or anything else like that. And
did we get a first down? Did we not?
All the team did was say, "Hey, we're down 21-7." Or where we really fall sometimes is like, "Hey, we're up 21-7. We must have done it right." When really, maybe we left something on the table. And then for the second half, that coordinator says, "Okay, go do these other things, run this plays, and they go out and they can never see the game actually as it's happening. Mm-hmm. Versus like if you think about an NFL game today, like what does the quarterback do even when they get to the sideline? They just watch the final few plays and everything else like that.
They're audibling in moment.
They're doing predictive analysis in the second. And so it's like, how can we help get that? Now, here's where I'm going to even turn it on its more side. One thing I'm afraid of is, are we allowing some of that to still educate our team, not just respond to direction? Because the thing is that like your Tom Brady's, your Peyton Manning's, they allowed that information to still educate them, and they started making those impulse gut decisions.
So that manager has been used to a different way of playing the game.
Yep.
The coach has always never been at the game. They've gone through the plays, gone back. How do we do this quarter? Oh, we beat or we did not beat expectations. And now we're in a place where these coaches, these managers, can actively coach through the day. And that's not a skill set.
Yep.
That's not a muscle we've worked. And I think we've noticed that that's a big area of opportunity.
And I think we've been on a farm before where we asked the manager, how much time do you spend doing that? Mm-hmm. You remember what they said?
Everything was very, very small amount of time.
None.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where we got to go with this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's disease, it's labor, it's this person went from a farrowing department head, now they're this sow farm's assistant manager. And it's like, well, we're just going to run the same play. And it's like, no, we can change that today, and we can actually change it tomorrow if we absolutely need to. Just like you said, be creative in the execution. And it's like, how do we get there? Like
Labor allocation.
Yeah, labor allocation. Making those in-game, I'm going to say in-game or in-day adjustments within reason to still execute what you sought out to do, versus saying, down 4 people, can't do it.
Sure.
Or Matt's gone.
Well, even personality profiles as it relates to the work being done. I'm a bad guy to have in breeding. I'm too wound. I'm the guy in farrowing. You want me doing early pig care because I can get those rounds done, and I'm going to move. But in breeding, that's hard to be patient for 3 hours standing there breeding sows. My conception rate was naturally a few % lower than others. I just wasn't as good at it. Wasn't as patient. That manager should be seeing that. Before they even get to the numbers, they should know, I don't know if he's the right fit for this because I don't know if he's the right guy to allocate to this type of work.
Yeah.
It's a personality, let alone the number of people per task and whether that task is actually generating a profit if we throw 2 or 3 people at it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where most of our failures come is in the people allocation.
Yeah.
Because like you said, I think I'm getting better now at finding, just seeing somebody working at Casey's or somebody working in a restaurant. And I'm like, man, that would be a really good day one pig care person right there.
I've gone through some drive-throughs or some businesses, and I was like, man, if I was running a farm right now, I would be hiring this person.
Heck yeah, man, I'd hire all of Chick-fil-A, the drive-through, I'm like, hey, I got something for you guys, but but I think, that's where that failure happens to, no, you can't hit that 100% of the time with that people allocation, but you also got to know, you got to be quick to say this isn't working. And I'm not saying you just let that person go. You just find a different seat for them somewhere.
We had an example on a farm where
because you wouldn't be good at breeding.
No.
But,
you wouldn't want me in breeding.
But we don't want you in there a year and a half before we make that call,
Yes.
We want to make that up front,
And we were in some environments, and the execution wasn't happening as fast as it should. And what they found out was that the person who was really good with penside care wasn't physically able to go as fast as the system needed to protect those pigs. So labor allocation in that world meant let's throw somebody younger and faster and put them as the first line who's hitting all of those sows as fast as possible. And let's take the more experienced individual who can't operate that fast, but they're going to jump in and they're going to help those more high need sows, the more specialized care. And it made a big difference. They just had the wrong person, the best person, but the wrong person in the wrong seat on the bus.
Yeah.
But getting people to, how do you as a leader think about coaching your mini farm managers and the work you were doing at New Fashion with the mini farm managers that are out there to be thinking about that as they're going through their day and not just jumping in and being the firefighter?
So if you're talking about finding the right people,
yeah,
for the
focusing
right
more
role?
on people and opportunity and less on solving problems.
Yeah, I mean, first it comes to data. Can we measure it? So if it's a, a heat check specialist, what is their fair rate? What is their total more? That kind of thing. And then again, on the front end of that, let's have this laid out for how long we're going to look at this and be very, transparent with those people or that person about how long that's going to last, to say, hey, we're going to come back to this at this point. Otherwise, you don't want any surprise with them.
It's not that they're doing a bad job. They're a strong fit. It's like not everybody can play quarterback.
That's right.
Not everybody's built to be a running back.
That's right. That's right. And that sport analogy of, and we talk about this often, just talked about it today, the process is the play, the outcome is the scoreboard. Like you said, let's just get first downs. Let's just make these things happen. And then let's look up at the scoreboard at the end of the quarter or halftime and see where we're at.
Get on base.
Get on base. Get on base. Yeah. So, but the other thing is when you do find that right person, especially, in those specialist roles of heat check or day one, let's protect that. Yep. Let's get those people in. Let's protect that. And let's make that a career. And I think that's something that we've struggled with, myself and as a company. What do we want to do with a great heat checker? We want to make them department head.
Yeah.
Then we want to make them a manager.
Versus just allowing them to be the best paid heat checker out there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And make that a career path within a farm, because...
Sports analogy, my best punter doesn't need to be promoted to be a quarterback just because they're a really good punter and we need to pay him more.
That's right. That's right.
Let him kick the ball. Let the guy pass. Let him heat check.
Yeah.
But you're right. They become the de facto manager, and they're terrible. And they may be terrible with people or hate farrowing. And I don't know if you can be a good manager if you hate one of the departments.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We've any farm, statistics, right? I can't believe I'm talking about statistics here. Dr. Coble's dying somewhere.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But, on a farm, it's a bell-shaped curve of, on the left side are, people who are, just there for a little bit and, maybe not your best employee. Mm-hmm. On the very far right side is your high-end people. Those are the people that we got to give more responsibility to.
Your Kyle Cobles.
Yes.
Nice. You like that one.
You're welcome, Kyle.
And then you got your middle that the industry's been built on. Just tell me what to do. Yep. Just tell me how I've been doing.
Yeah.
And then I'm good.
I want to know.
I want to know. Where we have fault is where the people on the far left are doing those critical jobs.
Yeah.
And how many times does that happen? It happens more than we think. So I think we got to get that right. And when you get it right, keep it. Keep it right. Now, if you got a great heat check person who's also got the moxie and the want and the drive to and have those people skills and have that it factor, man, let's go giddy up,
Yeah.
But that career path within a farm, I challenge our system and the whole industry of what is that? What does that look like? Sorry to get so deep.
No, it's deep.
Yeah.
It's the Celsius.
All right, we're gonna bring it back to relevancy in production today. We're hitting a bit on that. One thing that's very relevant today in production is PRRS, PED. Sometimes both at the same time, feels like this year.
Ugh.
Can we talk a little bit about how today we respond to those breaks? Both at the management level, the on-farm level, and just some of the challenges beyond avoiding getting sick with PRRS. Because obviously we don't want to get PRRS or PED, but we do. So how do we get better at navigating those disease breaks when they happen?
Hit me.
That's a you thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you really looking for me?
No,
the
looking for
HR
PJ here.
the HR guy for disease breaks.
Let's talk mental health first.
No,
Yeah,
I
I
think
could do that
The
one.
break.
Well, that's a tough one. I think, recently, I have found myself in that kind of that mode of, whether it's at a conference or whether it's, reading an article or whatnot, that we kind of marginalize, or I felt like I was, these PRRS breaks. It was just it was a data point,
Yeah.
or it was hey, this PRRS is not as bad as this one, and I had to stop myself recently because, I started to think about that, and you really get that when you go in those farms, and I think that's what I challenged myself to do was behind every one of those data points is a farm that's in chaos.
Mm-hmm.
The leadership, the farm manager, the assistant that are, they're taking it hard. There's the people on the farm, just that domino effect of a PRRS or PED break that any farm gets. I'm not just saying within the JBS system.
Mm-hmm.
I've sat there and looked at some of this massive amount of data, and I'm like, what's that one point up there? Where's that farm at, in Minnesota, and kind of knowing what they're going through, and that's a real tough one. And I'm not even going to get the PED, and some of the management practices that we got to do around there. But I think when we look at that, and I've brought myself to more empathize, bring me back to that scenario. I'm not saying I want to keep doing that.
Yeah.
Hell, I don't want to go to any more PRRS breaks.
Yeah.
But I got to realize what's going on, and I think the people are just more resilient than I am. And let's just make things happen. And it's devastating. And I think that mental health thing, man, that's real out there.
Yeah,
And there's a protective mechanism of being numb to it, right? People can their body is naturally going to say, you know what, just this is life and death.
Yeah.
But there's a dangerous component to that where you just become numb to the ups and downs. And who cares if we're in a PRRS break? We're always in a PRRS break. Less expected, or
that's a dangerous spot.
Yeah, it's dangerous. So how do you support and be empathetic to the breaks, but also maintain high expectations when you know that is a very fragile balance between I'm surrounded by death and issues, but yet I have all these extra expectations, and now I'm probably not getting bonus.
Yeah, that's going back in time, I can remember, because I had to rationalize this in my head, because it used to be devastating to me, and I'm not saying I want that to be every time, but I can remember, back in my formative years, was with two people. Brian Melody, who's now with Elanco, good friend of mine, good old Catholic kid from Ames. And Dr. Tim Niffen, when Dr. Niffen was, very, he helped me a lot out in my formative years of learning how to raise pigs, and he was a great guy. But I remember going to a PRRS break, and it was newly repop farm, naive break. It was freaking ugly. And in my mind and in Brian's mind, we were thinking about, the production implications, and we're going to this farm and what we're going to do. And I can remember getting into the farm distinctly, about to shower in, and I looked at Dr. Niffen, and he wasn't the joyous person that he normally was. And we said, what's our goal here today? Because that was always the driving force, to this day. What are we going to do? What's our agenda? And I'll never forget, he said, we're just going to have them smile. We're just going to go in, because he knew it was bad. And we were going in and shoot LVI and all that around that. He said, let's just go in and try to get them to smile. And I'm like, okay, now I get it. Sometimes we got to put this aside. An analogy I just used recently. Last week, I was with some other business units in the global system, and there was a gentleman. I was explaining about, the live pork side of things, and kind of what we deal with, some of the contingencies and the, hurdles in our business. And you can't get past the $1.2 billion, dollar effect that PRRS has on our system. And I brought that up and talked about it and what we do and biosecurity and whatnot. And later that night at dinner, he goes, can you explain to me exactly what this is? And in my mind, I mean, he caught me flat-footed, but I was like, okay, let me give this a try. Just imagine if you worked in an office building, and every year from about Thanksgiving to Easter, there's a 50% chance that your building's going to catch on fire and burn down. And if it does, and when it does, we're going to ask you to come in the next day, help clean up, and do some more of your job while the building's still smoldering around you. And like you said, by the way, bonus is gone. Mm-hmm. That's where I get back to that. When I step on those farms, you know, I have to be empathetic with the people for what they're going through. And that's just the reality. And to do that again and again, it's tough.
You probably know we talk a lot about innovation in pork production here. What you might not know is SwineTech, the team behind this podcast, is leading the charge with their PigFlow platform. SwineTech is dedicated to empowering pork producers worldwide to provide high-quality, individualized care for every pig. Their world-class workforce management and point-of-care platform, PigFlow, streamlines, automates, and monitors routine and emergency care, communication, daily workflows, administrative duties, and herd diagnostics. This enables producers to optimize workflow and task clarity, execution efficiency, prioritization, and simplification of compliance assessments. PigFlow empowers managers with the ability to analyze and refine their processes and make adjustments to enhance overall value. If you're interested in learning how producers are maximizing their resources, enhancing efficiencies, and improving employee engagement in pig care with PigFlow, visit swinetechnologies.com.
So you speak to culture. That's probably where culture matters more than anything. Why do I work with pigs?
Yeah.
And why do I work for this particular company?
Yeah.
And I think as the industry has grown, the leaders that can best drive the buy-in on the why have not shared that story maybe as often as what we could. And I think a lot of it is we have a very humble producer base. And when you go into a farm and you ask, do you know the story of the company you work for? They're like, no, no one's ever told me. I'm like, so you don't know who you work for and how amazing their story is? And when going through a break and you have somebody coming in and saying, hey, I need you to put in extra work because everything's burning around us.
Yeah.
We don't have money to pay you bonus. Mm-hmm. What's keeping me there?
Yeah.
I hope it's not life expectations. Some people are trapped, but I hope they're there because they believe in the company they're working for or they care that much about the pig.
Yeah.
How do we get more of that?
Yeah, that's I think at JBS, our 80% of the people there and our top performers, we know what the company stands for. And, sometimes it's about we don't have all the answers. We don't know why this keeps happening, but we're going to focus and we're going to get better.
You're being vulnerable.
Hell yeah, because that's all we got,
yeah.
To talk about. But it's true, we know less about PRRS today than we did 20 years ago.
Which is so frustrating.
And it just pisses me off, Yeah. It just is absolutely frustrating, So we're going to, through lack, of a better, understanding, we've gotten good at managing our way out of it. Mm-hmm. We know what that's going to look like. And I think our Midwest group, led by Matt Smith and Adam Enegers and their team, they're in Southeast Iowa, Illinois. They know what PRRS is, but I'll be damned that team grinds it out. And in the face of PRRS, they focus on the processes, so let's focus now. I know all hell's breaking out around us, but let's not forget these things because when it comes around, let's be ready. And I think they've done a very good job of that. Yeah. Farms that go from literally 0 PSY up to well above 30. That's when, hey, we know we got it going on.
I think sometimes that's a good opportunity to remind people that the work that they do does matter, right? If we execute really well right now, like this is a big time to make a difference. And if it's about if everything's burning around me, but if I know by showing up, I can make an even bigger difference in that moment than on a day when the sun is shining and farm's naive and we're pumping out a bunch of pigs. Like that brings a sense of purpose and pride in my work.
And I think we've gone at it because we can't cure PRRS. I've given up on that, So, we've
Not
got
yet.
we've got Ben Keeble in our system who works in the wean to finish end of things, helping on biosecurity, our controllables there. He's done a great job with that because there's massive amounts of opportunity in the wean to finish world to doing that. In our reproductive end of things, it goes back to those controllables. Let's be simple. The biosecurity, our multiplication team built a. You talk about slat up. The thinking was let's make biosecurity tangible. Because we've always had that. Or didn't have it. I should say. You go to a farm. Where there's a dog sitting on the desk, and there's raccoons running through, and you're like, "How's your biosecurity?" Good.
Well, there's a hole in the wall, and you got 3 coons running in, eating out of the troughs.
Yeah. So they built a slat up digital tool to measure biosecurity because it's things that are within our control. We don't control the traffic outside. We might have a farm located outside of Columbus Junction or not too far away from a tunnel. We don't control that. But let's be good at the things we do. And we're knowing those gaps, or we're learning them as we go, and we're trying to fix them, and I think that hopefully shows myself and our team that we're focused. We're not giving up. Hell no, we're not giving up. We might get kicked in the teeth a lot, but we're not going to give up, and that's what defines us. We're going to get better at what we can control.
So, question:
getting all freaking worked up.
Yeah, go for it. It's Celsius.
All right, so we've got thanks to Celsius for their
our sponsorship
of our energy today. You're going to Australia. You spent a decent amount of time in Australia with JBS's presence there. They do not have a high total born. Genetics is a limitation on throughput there. U.S., we have a high total born, but we have the disease pressures, and Australia maybe has less disease pressures, we'll say. What environment is more fun? And I really mean that. Is it lower ceiling, less challenges, or higher ceiling, more challenges? You see 2 very different environments. What is the more motivating environment to be a part of?
That tells a lot on personality right there.
Yeah. What do you expect me to say here? This is all coach speak about to come out because, I love those guys more than you. I got to go to work, man.
Yeah.
Damn. To answer that question without pissing out freaking continent off,
we love you, Australia.
Yeah. It's 2 different things.
They're very different.
Very different. The Australian group, though, I think is working on the genetic end of things, because what I would love to do with that Australian group, and that's led by, Edison Alvarez down there, leads that, great vision. Cherie Collins is the Dr. Turner of Australia. Warren Smith is their head of their sows, and Tully is on the progeny end, as they call it, which is really cool, and I like saying that.
I got a message last night. When are you guys coming out with progeny? And I was like, we're not doing anything. The nucleus. No, we need to finish.
Yeah,
like,
that's
okay.
right. I got to change my term. But that is a great team down there.
Yeah.
They have got the tenure, that experience. They've got that. And I'd love to challenge them with more pigs. Because I think when I look at them, I tell my American, my team here, I'm like, those folks are good.
They're good.
They don't have that push yet. So my talk to them is, hey, it's coming. We're going to get that, and they're seeing that with the genetics they have now. I just got Waz or Warren. Everybody's got a nickname down there. His graphs. They're getting better at what they got, and I'm just like, man, if we could give them 17 pigs in a crate, they could compete on a global basis. You know.
So the reason I ask, and it's not throwing stones, it's there's grass is not always greener on the other side.
Yeah.
Right? They don't have the disease pressure, but they had the limited ceiling, and that's frustrating to them. It ticks them off. We have the unlimited ceiling, but we have all the disease pressure. That pisses us off.
Yeah.
I'd say no matter where we're at, there's that frustration on the people side. I'm curious if you notice a difference or if it truly just is a problem's a problem. Everybody's got them. And the things that work in a highly prolific country like the United States with disease pressure, if the same management and leadership approaches to the sow farm, to production, translate in either environment, do you see any differences there?
Yeah, so we would use we would use the same playbook, you know.
Okay.
There'll be some things in there that we don't have to do because of the high total born on this end.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our challenge litters, our 3-2s, are putting 40 pigs on 2 sows. We don't have to do that in Australia yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we talk about those down there, you know, but still the fundamentals of gilt management, they're great on body condition down there because we got to be. It's 110 degrees for like 4 months out of the year down there. I mean, they got to be good at that. But they have some good stockmanship. You know, we see that in the UK with the outdoor herds. When I was with PIC, it amazed me the amount of stockmanship that they had that we could learn from them.
Is that because if you're not good at it, you're not relevant because of the different types of pressures? Like you have to be a good stockman?
Well, yeah, you learn real quick. If a sow is agitated and in a hut and you got to go in there and process pigs, you don't freaking go in there or you're not coming out. You're going to end up a lay-on. So by default, they had to get good at that. And I think we lost some of that, you know, so I keep trying to kind of look at that in our system. You know, if we see a sow who's, you know, in the colostrum curve, you know, letting down milk, you know, I try to stop, you know, my mentor in this business. And I've just found him again, started talking to him, Joaquin Sporquet out of South America, he was big on looking at that sow and just stopping and looking. And it's just a really cool thing to do. You know, a sow's letting down milk, calling in pigs, man. Again, I'm a very boring person, you know, but that's pretty awesome.
But it's become so go, 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 go. Yep. Is relevancy in the future getting people to just take a step back and slow down? We're looking for efficiency, but do we need to go slower to go faster in this next generation of production?
Well, I think our processes have to be built around that efficiency, but it does help to understand. You know, our processes are built around, you don't necessarily need to know, you know, 6 hours into colostrum curve, you're 50%, but our processes are built around that. So we kind of fall into that. The same around gilt development. You know, our diets, Dr. Cobal's built, match perfectly for the most part with our timing. You don't have to worry about it. We'll get to the weight at the right time. If
So
that makes
the
sense.
system's in place where whether they know why or not, they're going to execute it the way we need to. But then in the future, it's about providing the resources so that way, as they're executing, if they want to know why, they can always go and find that information. Is that fair? Like they're going to do the process as it's specified, whether they understand the stockmanship of it or not.
Right.
It's kind of where you're getting to.
That's right. And you know, those people, and I know you've seen this, that'll want to stop and say, why is this happening? You know, that where you can start, you know, stop and talk about, you know, that's Mother Nature working right there. You know, that's the sow who's still out in the woods calling her pigs and they're finding mom and finding the underline. You still got to stop and talk to people about that because that's that bell-shaped curve.
Yeah.
Maybe that's somebody who's trying to break into that other thing, and you want a good understanding of that to be able to talk about that, you know.
Yep.
Do you absolutely need to? Absolutely not. But it's good to have an understanding of that.
I'll never forget when I was a kid on my grandpa's farm, it was the pull together barns, and we
Yeah.
turned sows out and actually
He's
scrape
the
out
old
wood
guy.
shavings.
Yeah, right.
All
Yeah.
the stages. And when we would let them back in, we'd open that door. Every sow knew exactly which stall to go to. We didn't have to choose. They just knew. We turned them out, let them back in, and they found their piglets. And it was just fascinating, just the mothering instinct to know, do I go left, do I go right, and do I go 5 down or 7 down?
And
They knew.
For the next time, we'll talk about genetic potential. But Dr. Turner and I have talked about this. I think we underestimate the ability of these sows today.
From a
Production standpoint, from our management standpoint. Because when we started doing these litters where there's huge total born, you know, of watching 40 pigs on 2 sows, they learn. And they make it happen, and it is absolutely magical to watch that litter function and how those pigs move around. Because the first thing you're going to say is, "Well, there's not enough teats."
Yeah.
No shit, there's not enough teats. Well, we got to do something, and that's what we're going to do. And by God, it works. And we got the data to back it up, and we've marketed 6 million of those pigs at least.
Awesome.
So it's awesome. You get me all heated up, man.
So how bullish are you on the future of what it means to have a career in the swine industry? And what does it mean to set yourself up for success if you're in your 20s?
Yeah, well, the easy thing is saying, if I can do it, anybody can do it, you know. But what a spot to be in, you know, if you're in your 20s, you know, and, you know, college might not be in the cards for you, you know. Can I get in? Can I learn the system? Can I learn the processes? And will I learn, or do I have the innate ability to lead people? And where those two things go, it's going to take off. It's going to take off for you.
I have a question for you then. So
I'm going to need help
for
here.
Barrett too, and for Barrett.
Okay.
You are 20 years old, and you know you want a career in the swine industry.
Okay.
And you've decided that you were going to work a couple of years in the swine industry, but now you're at a crossroads of, do I go to college? Do I get a degree? I see all these people coming in and getting management jobs that are coming out of Iowa State. What do I do? If you're in their shoes, knowing what you know today, would you rather go and get a 2 or 4 year degree in animal science and then come back to the industry, or continue working full time and spend your time learning a multiple language, being fluent in Spanish and English? Is fluency in Spanish and English and time in the barn more valuable than a degree?
I'll let Barrett go. Come on, Barrett. Because I got my answer already.
For me,
you write it down. Let me write it on my hand.
I mean, this goes back thousands of years of like the importance of being able to communicate, build relationships, and everything else like that. Whether we want to believe it or not, if you can't speak the same language, there's a barrier. To what level? It depends on the person, depends on the context, depends on the relationship. And this is all depends upon, like, are you asking like what I would do or who I would choose?
No, if it both. Let's hit both. Let's say
Well,
you're
asking
hiring.
Barrett, and I'd do all three.
Yeah, that's fair. You can't do all three. You have to choose. You have a limited amount of time and resources, and either I'm going to college or I'm learning another language, and I'm going to know it to the T. I will be bilingual. I will know the contextual relevancy of what I'm saying, the slang. I am bilingual.
Yep. So I would say I'd actually go back to school, knowing common hiring practices, and I'll tell you why. Over 90% of our labor today has a college degree, and a large portion of them are also bilingual.
That is correct.
If you are bilingual with no education, none being community college, you are still underqualified in that realm. So I would say go back to school, then go back and do that. You just have to buy yourself time.
You would say double major in Spanish and
Heck
animal
yeah.
science.
That would be the way to go.
I would double down.
That's the perfect world.
But I think we overlook that, because I say those metrics to a lot of people, and they're like, shoot, like, you're right. We have a highly educated, motivated workforce throughout the industry. The qualifications aren't easier. They're actually getting steeper.
So if I'm a student, the sky's the limit. If I do 3 years of internships, maybe at a genetics company, maybe JBS, maybe a tech company, I'm bilingual in Spanish, and I have an animal science degree.
Yep.
It's your foot in the door.
You're in.
You're in.
Yep.
But because
I want the butt. Yeah, what's
my
the butt?
son Andy is watching, I would not go to the University of Florida.
It's because you had too much fun.
No, I say that.
You learn about
Definitely,
life.
I would. That's it. You know, I don't.
Yeah.
What I learned from college now, you know, that I'm 10 years from graduating.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a lie.
Yeah.
World Pork's coming up. I'm getting
Yeah,
ready
right. I
to
was
gonna say
lie
10
like
years.
everybody else is
jeez.
about KPIs. You know, that problem solving around
Yeah.
that. I think that's
Yep.
instrumental in that advanced degree or that bachelor's degree is that you know that. That being said, that person who comes in without that college degree who can learn Spanish on a farm, and you will, or vice versa, I mean, the sky is the limit. You know?
Yeah.
What Dr. Turner and I have talked about is I believe the next PJ Corns, it very well could be a female Latino international employee.
Yeah.
It could be.
Yeah.
Very well could be. And I'd love for that to happen.
Oh, 100%.
Not that there's anything else wrong with the other male. I don't want to be
I'd almost
accused
bet
of,
if I was going to put my cards on the table and say I'm going to place a bet, I would bet that in 30 years, it's far less likely that it's maybe not even practical to be in your role if you're not bilingual.
that's true.
Yep.
But
And truly
as my
bilingual.
career has told me, what is it? The common language is money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if you can go to Inner Mongolia or places like that, and you can, and it's helped me to be able to teach when you don't know the language. I think we've talked about this.
Yeah.
You got that heightens things, you know, and actually has helped me. And I got to
You learn
remind
different.
myself, language, man, we can get through that.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
but do I have the patience and
Yes.
the other skills to make that happen? That's
And
what's
maybe to
cool.
dive a little deeper too, because
I don't do anything easy, Barrett.
AI may solve the problem of translations, right? You might walk into a room and those headphones in 30 years are that good. But to be bilingual isn't just, in my opinion, is not just the ability to regurgitate words.
Oh,
It's
man.
to be able to connect it to culture, experience, and to walk in and people go, they know me.
Yeah.
And that part, AI is not going to solve.
No, that's right.
And it was funny because, like, so Salvador is a member of our team, and when I speak Spanish, he goes, "Your personality changes." He's like, "It matches the room a lot differently," and I never thought that'd really be a thing. He's like, "Oh yeah," he's like, "You're actually a much better, uplifting, like, excited guy." I was like, "Well, thanks." Apparently, my English speaking guy is rather boring, or
Serious.
yeah.
Maybe I got a chance if I know Spanish.
Maybe.
So, but yeah, it's it builds a relationship that can't be mirrored to the exact, but you can get through those barriers for sure. Because I've seen those headphones at more than a couple farms now. Mm-hmm. So,
So let me ask you this. You talked about the headphones getting better in the future. Getting back to relevancy.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to be the most relevant 5-10 years from now in this industry? What makes that happen? We talked about what it used to be. What's that going to be in the future? What's that look like?
I don't think we know, but I thought it used to be that
It's freaking easy asking these questions.
Yeah,
man.
right.
You got
Yeah,
this
right.
in a
easy.
way there I thought it was the smaller to medium sized producer had the technological advantage because of how close they were to the problem.
Yeah,
But
there's something to be said for
there
that.
is.
Yeah.
But with what AI is doing, for the larger producer that is willing to put the infrastructure and the resources together, I think that there's a back on top component to that if those right pieces are in place. And then I think that the mid-sized producer, the one that no matter what happens is still going to be relevant. Maybe that's 20,000 sows, maybe that's 30,000 sows. For no matter what happens with demand, they're still going to make it with a very clear and well-executed succession plan.
Yeah.
I think that's the dangerous. Those are the guys that are going to pump out cash because they're going to be small enough yet bought in and committed enough to say, I want my family farm to persist for the remainder of my career, which might be another 20 to 30 years. So I'm willing to commit to the costs.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm willing to go and implement what's going to be needed for me to be relevant in 30 years because I know I'm going to be there, which is the benefit, I think, of a bigger company. They have that longer term mindset, but they don't always have the nimbleness of that medium-sized producer. And so for that, that 20, 30-year-old who's committed, I think they have the biggest advantage of anybody in the industry right now.
Yeah.
That's just my perspective.
I think,
What do you think?
well,
Back at you.
I agree. But I also think, going back to the sports world, I think last time I was here, I think we were right in the beginnings of the college football playoffs.
We were.
Florida
was about to win a national championship per you.
There we go.
Yeah.
But you cannot, if you look at what Indiana did,
Oh yeah. Overnight.
watch what the other teams are doing now. So
That's a real
you gotta
comparison.
have experience.
Yep.
You got to have experience. You got to have the transfer portal to bring in players to plug the holes, and you got to have the recruiting. They had that.
And the money.
What's everybody else doing now? Well, Mark Cuban helps.
Yeah.
What's everybody else doing now? They're looking for that quarterback, the experience. They're looking for, a few players on defense, the transfer portal, the recruitment.
Yep.
I think that holds true with business,
Yeah.
in the pig business.
Oh yeah.
We got to have the experience. We got to have old guys like you guys,
Yep.
Thank you.
out there, that got the experience.
It's good for us to be called old.
Yeah. That
Those are the
have that
youngest.
experience.
Yeah.
You have to have the transfer portal, to, I like to say JBS is a place, if you come to work for us, you're going to be challenged, you're going to be developed, and we're going to find a spot for you,
Transfer portal within Swine, but keeping them in Swine's the other transfer portal.
That's
we don't
right.
need them going to other sports.
That's
like
right.
they need to stay.
That's right.
Stay in
So,
Swine.
I'm obviously jaded. I'm with JBS, and we're going to keep you here,
Mm-hmm.
but we also got to keep them from going elsewhere to the other companies. And then you got to have that. We got to bring in, because we know the demographics right now, and it's not good. We know that in our system. I mean, look, we'll see it at World Pork. What is that? 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now. You know, it's not getting any younger. We've got to get that recruitment in place to get those people here. You know, so I think those similarities are that kind of mirror each other.
And I think probably the biggest inflection point on change that at least I've seen has been when leadership has transferred to another person 15 years or greater younger.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long, and there are some immediate changes. And so as we do start to see a change in the age or the demographics, I think the innovation is probably the wrong. We'll call it innovation. We'll just call it change. Change will happen faster. I mean, that's bound and determined to happen. Just how many more years until we see a large enough percentage of the industry go through that transition?
Yeah.
Because there is a gap.
There's a gap, and I think
Not a lot
that,
of 40 and younger, like 50,
No.
low 50s.
and I think that, and again, Dr. Coble and I obviously have a lot of time on our hands because we talk a lot, but about that, what's that management structure going to look like? I think it's going to get, flatter. It's got to, where we have, put my money on it, more analysts, steering the AI, steering the data to help the few people out.
Say it's more like dairy and poultry.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yep.
More educated management, potentially less educated frontline. That's what dairy and poultry looks like today,
yeah.
at least.
I think what
What poultry, has is they've got the playbook based upon their genetic that's really good, and I think we can learn a lot from that, and they don't vary off of that.
Yeah, they're significant.
So I don't know if less educated, but they'll be very educated in our processes.
Fair.
Fair.
yeah. maybe I'm off on this, but I think where you're going is it used to be multiple tiers to an organization, and now with the analysts, some of those roles can actually be redistributed, or those key talent, key leaders, and then driving some of that decision, that information even closer to the slot level versus it cascading down a big pyramid of people as far as what decision you're going to make.
Or at least create the perception that it's flat.
Yeah.
Right. And the evolution that is going to happen of how many people does it take to do that? I think we're fairly good in the sow farm and knowing X amount of people per sow.
Yeah.
But you get out in the wean to finish world, that gets a little bit, where do we know where that is? And you get out in the management world, where's that going to go? I think we're going to have to do something.
Yeah.
Then it gets into the KPI discussion of what makes sense.
Well, grow finish is a tough environment right now. Multiple companies that have tried to modernize that have gone out of business because the ROI, or how do I put the system in place to then unlock all of the doors to find the value, that first step, the industry by far and large has not yet said it's willing to take it.
Right.
Which I think we're bound to take that step. But a lot of companies have thrown millions into that stage and just not been able to get there yet. So I think enough of the industry is going to have to take that step at the same time to maintain some of these tech companies that are trying to do that.
Sure. And yeah, how many people does that take? Is that one person per 70,000 spaces?
Right.
Is that one person per 40?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's in flux. You know, one of the things
It's the
I
wild,
brought
wild
a-
west.
Yeah, I brought a lot back from my time overseas, but I really enjoyed that. I caught it in Spain where the labor was, very similar to the U.S. in, cost and things like that, where they would look at a KPI of pigs per FTE, pigs per full-time equivalent.
Yep.
That's a pretty good number.
Yeah.
That's a real tangible number of, okay, if I'm going to take an extra person on, I need you to wean me 10,000 more pigs, you
Yeah.
know, and that's a good, we've talked a lot about
Yeah.
KPIs and relevancy, that's a good one out there to keep throwing around.
So wrap things up. Final thoughts. My initial question is going to be, what advice would you have to the future swine professional? We kind of hit on that a bit for what it means to be relevant, or what advice would you have for a producer as they're looking to be relevant? And then any final thoughts do you have? And we'll start with you, Barrett.
Yeah. So advice towards anybody like in the industry, as
Yeah.
far as that goes,
As a producer or as an employee?
as an employee, just learn, be a sponge. And, you said, hey, should I get 4-year education or bilingual and experience? And I hit this with my kids all the time. Like, it's not an either or sometimes. Sometimes
love that.
it's both. Like, you're creating options, whether like somebody out there that wants that role says like, I'll come take it all.
Yeah.
And so you got to be that person, because, I'm looking at our talent in the industry and I'm super excited because I'm like, man, like the power that we have and the technology that's coming in and the leaders who are passing the baton or teaching somebody, we're actually in a really good spot right now. So
If I was in my 40s and I wasn't willing to be the sponge,
yeah,
I'd be terrified of those people in their 20s right now who are ready to take that, because they're going to surpass them so fast
yeah,
with just the amount of resources that are available today.
yeah.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah. I mean, lockstep with you, I think, it's hard work, this business, as you guys know, and that scares a lot of people off, it just does. So, you try to be transparent with folks coming in, but if you'll pay your dues, I think we talked about this last time, if you'll pay your dues, get in a spot where you can show your tangible results, whether that be leading your team or part of that team, that slat up. Now we've got that. Hey, look what I did today that we never had before, and keep building off of that. And if you can combine that with the people skills, the leadership skills, if you can learn those, again, those two things meet, and that's a untapped potential.
So with that, given the labor pool as you know it today, and given how we can see whether we've succeeded or failed and how that's going to continue to get better, when you talk about patience, pay your dues, how many years should somebody out of college or fresh to the industry be committed to saying, you know what, after this many years, if I'm knocking it out of the park, I should be getting a promotion, I should be getting that next opportunity, or I should be looking at the transfer portal? Like, is it 3 years, 5 years? How long does it take? Barrett?
I'm saying if you're not seeing some sort of additional responsibilities, if you're not being sought out for, hey, you're doing a great job, or you could start to see progress in your career. If you're hitting 4 years and you don't even have to transfer out of the swine industry, but if it's been 4 years and you're just still, and you're not where you want to be, and
You're confident it's not your fault.
Yep. Yeah, you're confident and you've looked in the mirror and everything else like that, that's when you start to need to look at it like at a different team. doesn't always mean that, hey, I should have been breeding department head. I should have been sow farm manager. It's like, hey, is my organization, is my team feeding me to help grow me either from experience or ability to do my job somehow? So I think that's the other thing that gets diminished sometimes is like, oh, I didn't get this job title in 3 years. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I think.
What would
that
you
is
ask of
so-
your team? How patient should they be?
Well, I think it's so foreign to me what you bring up, right? Because we're not really in that spot a lot.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like
We're not.
I should not have been managing a farm 6 to 8 months into it. You know, that was just by default. But I don't know if we have much of that. If there is, like I said, there's something catastrophic, you know, that you need to look in the mirror at.
Yeah.
You know,
So
I
yeah,
would
if you're
say, I
if
don't
you're
know if that's the
listening
right
and you're
term.
4 years along and you haven't been offered any promotions and you think you're just a badass of a guy, you should probably be looking in the mirror. Is what you're saying?
Yeah,
Because it's probably unlikely that we haven't been looking for somebody who can make that impact.
I would think so, and that's also the culture that we want to build in our own team. Is, you know, I don't necessarily love it, but I want team members who are wanted out there in the business. That's when you know you're good.
Yeah.
You know, I want team members who can look in the face of another opportunity and say, I want to be a JBS because things are going to happen here.
Yep.
You know, that's okay. If you're not wanted in this business, my boss, Dr. Turner, will say, you know, hey, you need that. That's not a bad thing.
You said it earlier with Chick-fil-A. You want to be the Chick-fil-A. Yes. Are people going to be poaching from you? Yes.
Yes.
But are they doing it because you have created the best system and process to create successful people?
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So, yeah, I think that would take a big look in the mirror to say what's going on. And like I said, that culture of I want to teach people as much as I can, you know, and I don't know everything. You know, our system will teach people that they're wanted elsewhere out in the industry and they choose to stay here. That's a good thing versus abandoning ship because you need continuity. You need continuity, and I think I missed that with that football analogy. You definitely need people to stay in to keep that momentum going versus I got to build the team again. I'm in constant rebuild. You just won't get there with that.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Popular Pig. We aspire to learn and grow together through the experience and wisdom shared by our esteemed guests. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and colleagues within the swine industry. For more information, please go to popularpig.com to receive updates when new episodes are available. Popular Pig is brought to you by SwineTech, the award-winning creators of SmartGuard and PigFlow. To learn how PigFlow can help you streamline your workforce and reduce piglet and sow deaths, visit swinetechnologies.com.